UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Live on connectonair.com and remoteradioweek.org.
Connect on Air.
Remote Radio Week proposes distinct programs in English, French, Spanish and Arabic, featuring experts, examples, debates and technical tips.
Connect on Air, première plateforme dédiée à la radio et à l'audio digital.
Connectonair.com, radio and audio hub. UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Live on connectonair.com and remote-radio-week.org.
Namaste from Nepal. I am Balkrishna Pokhrel. I am working as Executive Director in Association of Community Radio Broadcasters, which is an umbrella organization of community radio operating across the country. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the UNESCO team for providing me this opportunity to be a part of UNESCO Remote Radio Week. I'm very happy to share about my organization, status and challenges of the community radios in Nepal, and contribution of the CAP Aid program for continuation of the teaching learning activities during pandemic situation through radio education. First of all, I would like to introduce my organization briefly. ACORAB, Association of Community Radio Broadcasters, Nepal is an umbrella organization of all of the community radio operating in Nepal. Now, 360 member radio stations are federated under this umbrella. Our work are mainly focused on advocacy and lobbying, capacity strengthening of the member radio stations, and we are also conducting different type of campaigns against traditional harmful practices. We are conducting campaign for social reform and sustainable social change as well. One of the beauty of ACORAB is ACORAB has its own dedicated country's largest media network, which is called Community Information Network, which is single satellite network to link all of the community radio across the country. And mainly, ACORAB is playing a vital role in safeguarding the voice of marginalized community. Thus, they are ensuring the freedom of expression of the common people through community radio. And we are disseminating the pertinent message, up-to-date message through member radio stations and CIN as well. Let me speak about the community radio, status of the community radio in Nepal. Community media in Nepal is emerging one of the key contributors for development of community and country as a whole. Moreover, it has been sincere actor for the civil surveillance of the public affairs and development catalyst, and community radio are playing vital role for protection and promotion of the right to information, especially focusing on the rural and remote part of the country. Let me share one statistics. In Nepal, there are altogether 7 provinces, and out of 7 provinces, Karnali is most remote provinces. If you see the scenario of the community radio and all radio in Karnali, altogether there are 42 radio stations, and out of 42, only 1 is commercial radio, and rest 41 are community radio. So, community radio in Nepal are spread most in the rural and remote part of the country. Now, I will take this opportunity to share some of the challenges of the community radio. First challenges of the community radios in Nepal is sustainability. Community radio campaign in Nepal has crossed 2 decades, more than 2 decades, and ACORAB, its umbrella organization of the community radio, completed its 19 years in campaign. Now, we are continuously advocating for formulating and promulgating the community media policy, community radio friendly policy, institutional development of the member radio stations, etc., etc. Previously, ACORAB had advocated to increase the number of radio, with the motto that there should be one radio station in each of the districts. Consequently, the number of community radio have been increased, and the community radio are spread across the 77 districts of Nepal. Now, it is time to evaluate the role played by the community radio and the strategy of sustainability and of the community radio in Nepal. At the same time, we are focusing on the sustainability, not only financial sustainability, social sustainability, political sustainability, technical sustainability, etc., etc. Another issue for community radio is in Nepal is capacity gap. There is capacity gap in radio journalists, likewise radio technician. It's another challenge. As an umbrella organization, we are constantly conducting different type of capacity development on management issue, on technical issue, on content issue as well. Let me briefly share about the education program, which is conducted in partnership with UNESCO Kathmandu office. ACORAB has been continuously working with UNESCO Kathmandu office on policy advocacy and lobby, capacity development, conducting different type of campaign, conducting education radio program, etc., etc. During the pandemic situation, radio is most effective means for distance learning. As community radio of Nepal are spread across 7 districts. In this regards, ACORAB, in partnership with the government of Nepal and in partnership with the UNESCO Kathmandu office, launched the CAP-AID education program. The education program is mainly focused on two themes. One is we have broadcasted the content produced by the government of Nepal, which is curriculum-based content. Similarly, we have produced and broadcast different type of psychosocial counseling type of content, creative writing content, etc., etc. ACORAB had been collaborating with various maintenance organizations during disaster to produce radio program, targeting the people of the different group. During the initial days, we have collaborated with various humanitarian organizations and other stakeholders, and we have broadcasted different type of PSA, public service announcement. Although there were programs directing to the COVID awareness message to the children, learning materials were not broadcasted by any type of media in such type of huge outlet to cover the huge number of the students across the country, so that we have produced and broadcasted the radio content in partnership with UNESCO. And it was a really interesting program. The program was broadcasted from more than 200 community radio across the country. So the large section of people, large section of students benefited from the radio. Let me share one of the research, one of the study of the radio conducted by the one organization. The study showed that the radio is most effective means to disseminate information among rural as well as urban population. The study shows that around 73% of the people in Nepal listen to the radio for awareness message. So we claim that the broadcasted radio lesson in partnership with UNESCO across the country have positive impact to the students. And it was really benefited for the students, those who do not have access to online education class, especially from remote area where only radio is accessible, means for their education and other information. So the students from this remote and rural area fully benefited from the radio program. Likewise, parent support is most for the continuation of the learning, especially for girls' child. During the initial stage of the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown, parents were worried if their girl child missed the lesson, so they are already in this thing. But after starting the radio lessons, they were happy, and the parents provided mobile phone to their children to listen the radio program, and parents fully support to the children. At last, I would like to suggest some of my tips to the local community radio stations as well as local authority. I think local radio stations should be guided from the motto, for the people, to the people, and by the people, because the local community radio are operated by the local community, and the local issues should be raised. So priorities should be given to the local content. And it will be better if the local radio can produce the content in local language and dialects, so that participation and ownership of the local community will be increased. Likewise, I would like to request all of the local government to support the local community radio for information sharing and awareness raising as they are serving the need of the local people in the rural and remote area. So these are some of my observations while working in ACORAB. With this point, with this sentence, I would like to end my note and thank you. I would like to thank once again to you and UNESCO team for this opportunity.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Live on connectonair.com and remote-radio-week.org.
Hello, my name is Sangita Acharjee. I am the assistant teacher at the Boranbindan Government Primary School, Gazipur, Bangladesh. My relationship with radio is radio as a teaching and learning tool during COVID-19 and beyond. Last year, when COVID-19 started and all schools in Bangladesh had to be closed because of the pandemic, the Directorate of Primary Education of the Ministry of Primary and Mass Education, with support from UNESCO through the CAPIT program, established a team of audio content developers to broadcast lessons on the radio. Because of my teaching performance, I was selected as member of the content developers team, which I was really happy about. As a content developer, I participated in the initial content mapping of what content from our textbook is most important and needs to be broadcast on the radio. Following the mapping, I prepared audio scripts in my teaching subject English, which I recorded at the radio studio. The audio scripts were based on our textbooks and allowed students to continue their education by following the classes on the radio from their homes. The recorded audio classes were then broadcast on national radio and community radio across Bangladesh on FM and AM radio frequencies, as well as were uploaded to the archives of the radio station. Oh yes, before I forget, as part of the project, the Directorate of Primary Education and UNESCO provided training to me and the other content developers to help us with the content development, script writing, radio voiceovers, and COVID-19 messaging, as well as connected us with pedagogic experts, which was really helpful. Since this was the first experience of many of us with radio-based remote learning, we did not have a lot of experience in preparing and recording audio lessons and working in the recording studio amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Due to movement restrictions and strained health protocols, many things had to be done over the phone or from a safe distance. Another challenge for me was that I have learned that conducting in-person classes with students in front of me is very different from producing radio-based remote learning with a script and recording at the studio. It was a challenge for me and my colleagues to make the audio classes interesting and interactive, as we could not directly engage with the students. Also, it was a challenge to feed the content of our textbooks into the audio classes. Normal in-person classes are 45 minutes long, whereas the radio lessons were only 8 to 12 minutes long per class. It was a real challenge for us to condense and distill all the information and knowledge that students must learn into 8 to 12 minutes per class. Radio has helped a lot and played a very important role during the pandemic in Bangladesh. At the beginning of the pandemic, before we started the radio based remote learning program, many students called me and asked when will we resume classes and how students can continue to study from home. Radio was a great opportunity and really helped us to continue providing learning to our students. Radio is very popular in Bangladesh as most smartphones in Bangladesh allow to listen to the radio. I think it is more than 97% of households in Bangladesh which have a mobile phone that allows to listen to the radio. On contrary, only 50.6% of households have access to a television. We have to see which exact features will be continued after the crisis. But it has already been agreed that the radio-based distance learning program will be continued as it made a great impact and will allow for blended learning in the future. The government of Bangladesh has officially included radio-based learning program in the blended learning framework and in the national COVID-19 response and recovery plan, which makes me very happy. My advice to other radio stations working on similar programs would be that the interaction between the teachers and students is very important. In Bangladesh, we have seen the positive impact of having a radio-based remote learning program on the radio and in parallel to engage local teachers to be in touch with the students and their parents. The combination of both worked really well for us. Another piece of advice from our experience in Bangladesh is that different radio stations, the government radio, commercial radio stations, and community radio stations need to work together hand in hand to reach all learners, including those in rural and hard to reach areas. UNESCO was very helpful in connecting and mobilizing the many different partners that were needed to make the radio-based remote learning program successful. As I mentioned earlier, all schools in Bangladesh were closed since March 2020 and did not reopen until September this year. Given that only 50.6% of households in Bangladesh have access to a television, radio was the only way for students to continue their learning and education. The radio-based remote learning program has really shown the potential and value of radio as a way to engage students and to provide distance learning. Also, I have to say that the radio-based remote learning program has created great benefits by establishing bridges between students, teachers, and parents that did not exist before. Under the remote-based learning program, it felt that everybody was pulling on the same string. I have seen that the radio-based remote learning program has allowed both boys and girls to listen to and benefited from the education from their homes. I think that in many ways have the online classes leveled the playing field. More than 52.50% of listeners of the radio classes are girls and 47.50 are boys. I'm extremely grateful to UNESCO and the government of Bangladesh for having made the program possible and for having created the opportunity for me to join and be a part of the great initiative that has allowed our future generation to continue learning during the pandemic. I would be very happy to continue providing my support and being a part of this great program and initiative. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my experience.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Live on connectonair.com and remote-radio-week.org.
I am Bharati Pokhrel. I work as CAPET project officer in UNESCO Juba office. My relationship with radio is since my childhood. I was listening to radio, different news, different learning program, children's activity. And since I started my professional career, I used to have radios to have different awareness activities delivered through radio to reach out the larger target group. Recently, to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, when the Ministry of General Education and Instruction made a call to all the partners here to support, to contribute for establishment of education on air program. So as CAPET project officer, I work closely with the ministry in terms of starting the education program, particularly for the secondary level, and also to provide capacity building training to teachers in collaboration with Global Education Coalition and UNESCO headquarter office. Challenge as everybody faced actually in South Sudan, it is new to have such challenges because this country is lot of flood affected country. So in the past also education was interrupted. At that time the country has used the radio education as a tools to reach out the children. So again here, because we know that South Sudan is not like other developed countries having access to television or internet. If we could go by percentage, then access to television is only in two major cities of South Sudan, Juba and Wau. And that is also the television is available with only the rich families. So it could be 1% or less than 1%, I would say. In terms of access to internet, it is less than 10% people have access to internet. So to reach out children for continuity of education, these options were not possible for South Sudan. So remain is radio. That radio is widely accessible in South Sudan. Almost 78% population have access to radios. The challenge is also like whether the radio is available with all children and how we can reach out to them. Also, it regards to the practical sessions because education, general education, and there is also technical and vocational education and training TVET program, which requires many practical sessions. Even in the science, we need the practicals. So how we can overcome those challenges or mitigate those challenges while delivering education program on air. To overcome these challenges, we started like first thing is to provide training to teachers. So we collaborated with the Global Education Coalition and ECD, Education Center, Education Development Center, who provided us virtual training. And all these activities are implemented under capacity development for education program thanks to the donor agencies, Sweden, Norway, Dubai Cares and European Union for providing this opportunity that we managed to have supporting the government for implementation of education on air program. So teachers training also helped us to overcome all these challenges like being in distance, how we can communicate, interact with children. So the design was made like in every radio sessions there will be two teachers. One will be as a teacher presenter, other will be like clarifying learners' requirements. So in that way we try to address the challenges that learners could face because of in distance. To improve the access to radios, other UN agencies such as United Nations Mission in South Sudan and UNDP as well as UNICEF through the Global Partnership Education Program, they provided radios, and radios were distributed at the community levels. So within family or in that community, following the social distancing measure, one radio can be used by 5 or 6 learners. So in that way we improved access to education, and then we noticed that the program is very much helpful to continue education. We noticed that after the crisis, the effect of crisis was longer, particularly on girls, because when there is no school, they had more to perform in domestic work. So there was a risk of them to getting dropout from the schools was one challenge. And on the other way also, how we can promote girls' education in South Sudan. So continuity of education program through radio was the most important that we found. So though the schools have opened now, we are still working with the Ministry of General Education and Instruction to continue these programs. So not only the children in school, but out of school children, school dropouts can also benefit from this program. If we see the data in South Sudan, 2.2 million children are out of school as per the study conducted by UNESCO together with the ministry has highlighted, and the number has been increased now up to 2.5 as estimate we can hear from the studies. So in this context, the program is most important for others to listen to and get on it. The second thing what we find interesting and useful is in Tibet, agriculture and livestock sector programs are very much helpful not only to the learners or the learners of Tibet who enroll in secondary schools and non-formal Tibet centers, but also to the youth and farmers all. So this program is also most important to continue, and UNESCO through CAPET program has taken initiative of starting this program.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations. UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Live on connectonair.com and remote-radio-week.org.
Okay, in the first place, I would like to give thanks to UNESCO for hosting me for this program. I'm called Teacher Hezekiah Paul from Juba Girls Secondary School. I teach biology and chemistry. My relationship with radio is I used to listen to news in radio and other social programs in radio. And also, based on the current situation with COVID-19, where also we have to follow some of the social measures which has been also introduced over radio. And currently also I have involved in a program which has been set by General Ministry of Education about education on air, where I am also part of the teachers who used to present lesson over radio, that is education on air. And in that program, I used to teach biology for secondary schools. The most precious challenge is how where schools were being closed was one of the challenges in promoting education, and also based on the policy of General Minister of Education, where education cannot wait. And the way forward, how can we continue teaching our learners during this period? It was one of the challenges which really faced us, as education could not wait. How can we conduct, or how can we endure a situation where there is no schools, and how can we continue in teaching process to promote education in our country? I think when the ministry came with the policy of education on air, I think Most of the learners or the listeners outside there tend to listen over radio as compared to in-class teaching where it is only focusing the learners, but the education online program also, it gives knowledge to our listeners who are not enrolled at school, and also for the dropout learners, which also has a positive impact to our society specifically. Also, my advice is, as now schools has been reopened, I'm urging other organizations and other sectors. Also, education on air programs has to continue, although we are also conducting class interactions lessons with our learners. I also urge the government to promote the program of education on air, I think, which is going to be implemented soon. And I hope also it can have a positive impact in promoting education in South Sudan.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Insights and suggestions on how to keep your radio business operating. UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Live on connectonair.com and remote-radio-week.org.
My name is Ruxandra Obreja, and I'm the chair of the DRM Consortium. Thank you very much for the opportunity of giving you a short introduction on how Digital Radio Mondiale, or DRM, the ITU recommended digital radio standard, can also deliver education. Now, let me remind you a little bit about the DRM. As you know, Digital Radio Mondiale is a digital audio broadcasting system that can deliver coverage locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally, and as such is unique among the digital radio standards. Let me show you how this really works in this diagram. So DRM, Digital Radio Mondiale, works in all frequency bands, above 30 megahertz, band 1, 2, FM, and band 3, and also in AM, including medium wave and short wave. The main thing is that DRM digital radio standard is one single standard. It has the same key features and gives the same benefits throughout. Now, who are we? The DRM Consortium is an international global organization, not for profit, grouping about 100 international members, among them top specialists, experts in digital radio. Here is a selection of some of our key members, going from South Africa to the United States and from the UK, Germany to India, which is our key market or key country. We are very proud to say that we have been very active in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and our work was recognized by ITU, which has awarded us a valued and very valuable award. Now, let's turn to education. I won't say very much, just the simple fact that there are students across the world, billions, without textbooks, libraries, internet connections, or even electricity. And the challenge is how to make varied teaching material available to these students. We think in DRM we can do that over the airwaves and can give them not only live audio, but also text, map, graph, whatever they need for that lesson. And they can also store that information and use it later as a library or textbook. So the question has been posed many times, why use DRM for education? Because usually we say, oh, education is online. Well, because radio enjoys wide coverage, and also because DRM can offer, as I hinted, not just excellent audio in all broadcast bands, but also data services. And data means, as I said, images, maps, graphs, explanation, text, and all this without the need for internet. How does this really work? let's see. If in analog, you could get an audio lecture over your normal analog receiver, in digital, we can mix the audio, the teacher's voice, the teacher's lesson, with the notes, the lecture notes. And we can do that through a system that is called Journaline. I will give you now a little example of what the student might hear and see on the screen of the digital radio. So this is an example of a maths lesson, just a snippet.
Good morning, students. Welcome to Radio School. This session is for Class 4 Mathematics. Today, we will learn about numbers in Chapter 1. Please navigate to the Journaline page, Distance Learning, Class 4, Mathematics, Chapter 1, Numbers. Please open Lesson on the Journaline. Let us start with classification of numbers. The first set of classification is natural numbers. Now we have a quiz on what we have learned today. Please turn to the next page on the Journaline. Please try to answer on your own. The answers to this quiz are in the next page for you to verify. That's it for today. Thank you.
So this was our maths lesson, and we are going to do that as part of our project, which we are developing for West Africa. We have selected a country, the Gambia, the school, the students, and the subjects. And a couple of key members of the consortium are trying to prove the concept. And we are obviously looking for more partners, more support. And if you are interested, please join the project. If it's still a bit unclear, we are now trying to explain to you how this would look in a mythical country called Integria, education without internet. So please watch this little video.
Meet Arnett. He's one of about 25 million citizens of Integria, a country that might be a bit like yours. Integria has been planning a transition from analog radio to DRM digital radio for the past few years. Arnett could order his DRM radio as the government has made millions of radios available to the public at reduced cost, thanks to an international development grant. Rose must go to her news agency office where she works as a journalist. She reminds Iris to do her schoolwork. Iris explains to Rose how the teacher will teach her lesson over digital radio today, using full interactive radio textbooks with pictures, diagrams, and examples. They will be accessible on the radio's screen using DRM's advanced interactive text service called Journaline. The DRM radio schooling service also includes homework. The answers to the questions will be broadcast tomorrow via DRM. Iris shows her parents the maths exercise she has done on her tablet, connected via local Wi-Fi to the DRM digital radio. All content is received via DRM digital radio, as mobile internet is not available in their home.
So this is how you would do education over large areas distance by using digital radio Mondiale. So what do you need not only to prove the concept, but to roll it out? For it to happen, there must be a broadcaster with digital transmission capability. Then it's a question of content, and very important, that of receivers or receiving solutions, which could be, as we saw in the video, tablets, mobiles, LED, big TV screens, and of course, standalone receivers. So who needs to be involved for the project to be a success? Without saying, broadcasters, regulators, receiver manufacturers, and of course, teachers, parents, and students. But above all this, governments, governmental organizations, and NGOs must buy into the concept and support it. And this is why we are addressing this to you. Please join us, and with confidence, engagement, hard work, and investment, we can offer this alternative, very solid, very good, and sustainable way of delivering education at a distance. If you want to connect with us, if you want to find out more about us or about the technology, please use all these links. And we invite you very kindly to look at the video from studio to listener. Please contact us and become a member of our education project. Thank you very much.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely.